And welcome to another live session from the series Engineering Qualification Validation in Australia. And in this live session tonight, which is live session number 159, yes, you heard very well. It's been already 159 weeks that I'm here every week on Sundays now, 8:30 p.m. Brisbane time, talking about a subject related to the engineering qualification validation or other related subjects to engineering, and also how to get a professional job here in Australia. And tonight I'm going to talk about the difference between being registered and being validated. But first, for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida, and I'm the founder of the website www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website to share content of value and useful information to help you in your journey to validate your engineering qualification here in Australia. And also, if you haven't joined my Telegram group yet, Telegram is like WhatsApp. It's a messaging app. You can join our group using the link that I'm going to paste. Join our Telegram group. We've got around 770 members in our group, so I welcome you to be part of the group where I share some audio. I'm just going to paste in Instagram. Join our Telegram group. Yes, it is there. And I like more Telegram than WhatsApp because it's more professional. It goes to everybody. Then it's your choice to open or not the message. WhatsApp, when it's a large group, sometimes the message doesn't go because of the algorithm. And also, if you want to register to my free online workshop, for those that don't know, I have my online free workshop where register using the link. You can register to the free workshop, and in this workshop I'm going to teach you in few videos how you can start your application to validate your engineering qualification here in Australia. It's free. You just need to put your name and your email address, and that's it. That's confirmed. You just need to make sure that you are getting my emails. All right. Okay, so I would like to know if you can put in the comments, do you know the difference between being validated as an engineer and being registered as an engineer? If you know, yeah, maybe you write yes in the comments. If you don't know, maybe you put no in the comments, so I know the audience if you are already educated or not in this subject. So it helps me to develop the content as well. All right, so let's see if is there any yeses or no. No yeses and no nos. Yeah, that's all right. So I'm assuming that no, that you don't know, because if you knew, perhaps you were not here. So what's the difference between being validated and being registered? Well, validated, the validation process is what we call stage 1 of your professional career here in Australia, which is to validate your undergraduate degree or your bachelor degree. And that is done by Engineers Australia. Engineers Australia is the assessing organization or institution which will assess your competencies and your skills and your curriculum and everything else, and they will then approve or not approve your qualification being at the same as an Australian qualification for, let's say, engineering degree or technologist or engineering associate, depending on what you're going to apply. So that is to be validated. And to be registered is then the next phase after you get validated as an engineer here in Australia. Unfortunately, Australia is not, I'm talking about nationwide, the profession of an engineer is not regulated, which means that Australia-wide, apart from few states, anybody can say that they are an engineer, and they can work as an engineer because there is no regulation in most of the states and territories. There are 3 states now in Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria, that they have now a registration scheme. Queensland is the pioneer of the registration. It has more than 90 years, 90 years of registration in the state. So it's a full comprehensive registration scheme. New South Wales and Victoria, they started their registration scheme in 1 July 2021. So last year, so it's been already 1 year that New South Wales and Victoria, they started their registration. But it is somehow in a transition period. Not all fields of engineering, they are compulsory to be registered, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in New South Wales and also in Victoria. So validated means that you're going to, if your country that you graduate is not a signatory, a full signatory of any of those accords of the International Engineering Alliance, it means that you will need to do your competency demonstration report, CDR process, and get your skills assessed by Engineers Australia, so you can be validated as an engineer. After you get validated, you will need to either go to Engineers Australia or Professionals Australia or other institutions, specific institutions for specific fields, and then get your next step, which is stage 2, which can be and I'm going to talk tonight about the National Engineer Register, or with Engineers Australia, or with the CPEng, the Chartered Professional Engineer with Engineers Australia as well, or with the Professionals Australia, you can become a RPEng, a Registered Professional Engineer, or in other areas as well. So you can become registered. In Queensland here, as I said, once you become registered, you become RPEQ, a Registered Professional Engineer of Queensland. And there is already legislation for the professional engineers, is the Professional Engineers Act 2002. And if you provide professional engineering services without being registered, or without being directly supervised, or without following a prescriptive standard, you are actually committing a criminal offense, and you can be prosecuted and charged with like a illegal exercise of the profession. And then you can, if convicted, you can pay hefty fines or even go to jail. So very serious for those in those states that they require registration. So I'm going to talk about the professional engineering services from Queensland, because Queensland is the pioneer, and New South Wales and Victoria, they following what Queensland has done or is doing, because they are in their beginning of their registration. But it's very important to understand the definition of the professional engineering services. So according to the Professional Engineers Act 2002 from Queensland, professional engineering services means an engineering service that requires or is based on the application of engineering principles and data to a design or to a construction production, operation, or maintenance activity relating to engineering, and does not include an engineering service that is provided only in accordance with a prescriptive standard. So sometimes I see in some of the Facebook comments that people say that you just need to validate or get registered if you need to sign a plan, and that is a misunderstanding of people. Some people, they don't know what they're talking about. They think that just because they are not signing, they don't need to be registered. In Queensland, it's not like that. It's not just about signing. Obviously, if you are signing a design, if you are signing a plan, which is an professional engineering services, you need to be registered. But there's many other professional engineering services that doesn't require signature. For example, if you're a civil engineer and if you're doing a spray seal is one of the treatment of roads. And then during the delivery of that spray seal, you are changing because of the characteristics of the stones or aggregate or whatever. You need to change the mix design, spray rate. When you change the spray rate of bitumen, for example, you are making a professional engineering services. So you're not signing anything. You just decide that you're going to change from X amount of liters per square meter to Y liters of square meter. So that is an engineering decision. You had to use your engineering knowledge. You had to use, maybe you did some calculation, and then to change the spray rate of bitumen. That is professional engineering services, and you need to be registered to make that change. You're not signing anything. You're just changing on the spot, for example, and in this case, you need to be registered. So don't be misled by some people that they don't know what they're talking about, and they're just saying to you that if you don't need to sign anything, then you don't need to be validated or you don't need to be registered. Professional engineering services is much more than just signing a design or signing a plan or signing a document. And you got to be careful, because if you are charged because you are not registered, this is a personal prosecution. The Board of Professional Engineers of Queensland, for example, is not going to prosecute the company, is not going to prosecute the project team, is going to prosecute you as a person, because you are the engineer or you are the person who should be registered. And it's not just about engineers. A lot of people that are not engineers, sometimes they ended up providing professional engineering services without being registered. And those people, they also can be prosecuted. So it's very, very serious and very important. In different states, they have different eligibility criteria to be registered. But I'm going to talk here tonight about 3 or 4 types of eligibility criteria. But if you live in New South Wales or if you live in Victoria, you need to make sure that you look at, you can go to the website. Very easy. You just do a Google search, engineer registration New South Wales, engineer registration Victoria, engineer registration Queensland. If you live in other states like Western Australia or Tasmania or South Australia, or in those territories, Northern Territory or the ACT, just Google engineer registration Tasmania and then see what you need to do to be registered. They don't really have an official professional engineering registration scheme like New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland, but they might have a localized way to maybe be more legal to exercise the profession of an engineer. But the most common eligibility criteria is for you to become a CPEng, a Chartered Professional Engineer with Engineers Australia. You can go to the NER, the National Engineer Register with Engineers Australia as well. You can become RPEng with Professionals Australia, Registered Professional Engineer with Professionals Australia, which is another organization. And there are a few other institutions that they actually doing the assessment of the stage 2. But I'm going to talk about the CPEng, the NER, and the RPEQ and the RPEng. So CPEng is with Engineers Australia. It means that once you become a chartered professional engineer with Engineers Australia, it's an international accreditation, which means that with CPEng accreditation, you can go to other countries if those countries are signatories of the International Engineering Alliance, especially with Washington Accord. It means that you can get automatic registration or charter status in other countries as well. For example, let's say that you are a CPEng here in Australia, and then you go to the UK, to the United Kingdom, and then they've got the Institution of Engineers in United Kingdom, and they have the Charter Engineer, which means that if you are a CPEng here in Australia, when you go to the UK, you can then apply with the Institution of Engineers in the UK and get a direct equivalence to your CPEng here in Australia. So you get your Charter Engineer status in the UK without really doing a lot of things. You gotta fill the form, show your CPD, and pay the fee, etc., etc. But it's not a full assessment like you had to do when you became a CPEng here in Australia. Engineers Australia, you can go to Engineers Australia website. There is a full guideline to become a CPEng. It's going to cost you about $1,815, including GST, and that is a standard chartered pathway. Or if you are a mature engineer, let's say more than 15 years of experience, you can then become a chartered professional by interview, and that's going to cost you $1,925, including GST. So it is a little bit expensive, but you need to remember that it is an international accreditation. There are some 25 countries that are full signatories of the International Engineering Alliance, so which means that you are free to go to those places and work autonomously and get equivalence to your Chartered Professional Engineer status. The other eligibility criteria is with the Association of Professional Engineers Australia, APEA, or Professionals Australia. And they have a status called RPEng, a Registered Professional Engineer. And they also have the full guidelines. You can just Google RPEng, Professionals Australia, and you just need to read the guidelines. There are some eligibility criteria. Obviously, you need to be validated already to become RPEng, and resume, etc., etc. The submission fee, if you are a member of Professionals Australia, and Professionals Australia is like the union for the engineers and managers and project managers. So, Sindicato dos Engenheiros, for example. If you are a member of APEA, for you to be assessed as RPEng is going to cost you $300. But if you are not member, you can still be assessed as RPEng, and that's going to cost you $500 for non-members. But if you are a member, then it's going to cost you $300. And the other eligibility criteria with Engineers Australia, because obviously CPEng is a more comprehensive assessment. It's not just 5 competencies like NER. RPEng is going to be 5 competencies. The CPEng is going to be 16 competencies like the stage 1, and that's why it's more expensive. But then Engineers Australia, they came up with a more simplified eligibility criteria for registration, which is NER, which is a National Engineering Register. And also you have to demonstrate 5 competencies. You have to have obviously some years of experience, about 5 years or more years of experience. And also you need to be a member of Engineers Australia. And for that, if you're going to do the assessment for the NER, is going to cost you $346.50, including GST. And when you do this assessment, it includes already the registration for the remainder of the year of the subscription. For example, if you do now, you pay $346.50, which will become then valid until 30th of June 2023. So if you do your assessment in January 2023, which means that you still have the remainder of kind of a reminder of 6 months until the end of June 2023 for your annual fee for the NER. But it's certainly much more affordable than the CPEng. And then once you become assessed and you are part of the National Engineering Register, every year you need to pay a fee just to be in the register. So the annual fee for the NER is 109 Australian dollars, including GST. So once you pay the $346 for the assessment, every year then you pay $109 for the annual fee for the NER. And those ones are usually the most common eligibility criteria to become registered in those states. And again, you need to go to the New South Wales state website and then search for the engineers registration New South Wales, or in Victoria, engineers registration Victoria, or engineers registration Queensland. And in Queensland, once you become registered, you become RPEQ, Registered Professional Engineer of Queensland, which means that you are assessed as a competent engineer, that you can be autonomous. You don't need to be supervised to provide professional engineering services, obviously, according to your competencies. All right, so just recapping that the difference between being validated and being registered. Validation is your stage 1 of your professional engineer career here in Australia, when Engineers Australia will assess your competencies. And if you are approved, means that your qualification is equivalent to an Australian degree of your engineering field that you applied for. So that's stage number 1, which means that you validated. Stage 2 means that when you achieve registration status, when you become either a CPEng, a Chartered Professional Engineer with Engineers Australia, or when you are part of the NER, the National Engineering Register with Engineers Australia as well, or you become RPEng, a Registered Professional Engineer with Professionals Australia. And there are a few other institutions that they also do for specific fields. For chemical engineers, there's a specific institution for that. For mining engineers, for mechanical engineers. So sometimes they overlap. Structural you can do with CPEng, but also you can do with the institution of structural engineers. So once you achieve those status, it means that you're eligible to be registered in your state. And as I mentioned before, there are 3 states that they have full registration. Sorry, 1 state that has full registration and 2 states that they have some partial registration and they are moving towards a full registration. Queensland has a full registration scheme already for the last 90 years. In New South Wales and Victoria, they have a partial registration in some fields since 1 July last year. I'm going to share my screen, and because I put some examples here. For example, for the NER with Engineers Australia, there's a lot of information about the NER here. I'll see if I can paste these ones in Instagram and YouTube. So that's for the NER. That's for the NER. So there's a lot of information there, the costs and the guidelines and everything. For the CPEng, there's a full page in Engineers Australia for CPEng. Where is that? I put CPEng. Where is that? Usually there's for individuals, student, chartered engineer. So there's a full page of chartered engineer information. I'm going to paste in Instagram and YouTube as well. And then Professionals Australia, also for the RPEng. I'm going to paste in there so you have the reference. You can go there and have a look. And also in YouTube. And NER, And then for those ones living in New South Wales, I'm going to paste the link for you to have some information about registration in New South Wales. And as you can see, it's more like for the building industry. And they include civil engineer, electrical engineer, geotechnical, mechanical, structural, and fire safety. So there's information here for New South Wales. For Victoria, also I'm going to paste the link for those ones in Victoria. And in Victoria, the areas are fire safety engineering, civil engineering, structural, electrical, and mechanical engineering. And then in Queensland, it's going to be BPQ, is the Board of Professional Engineers. So that is the site for those ones living in Queensland. One important aspect to talk about registration is that it's not just when you are living in, for example, in Queensland, that you need to be registered if you provide professional engineering services. You could even be living anywhere in the world or in Australia, obviously. But if your company and if you are delivering professional engineering services for Queensland, it means that you also need to be registered. For example, you live in Sydney and then you work for a consulting firm, and this consulting firm wins a tender, for example, here in Queensland to deliver a project. And you're the one doing the design for that project, even though you live in Sydney. But if you are delivering or designing a project that is considered to be, for example, a professional engineering services for Queensland, you need to be registered as RPEQ. If you are not you're also liable. You can be prosecuted because you're not registered. If you're not registered, you can be obviously supervised directly by RPEQ, or if you're just following a prescriptive standard. But if you're not supervised by RPEQ, if you're not following a prescriptive standard, you need to be registered, even if you live in Sydney or Melbourne, whatever. But if you are working for a Queensland, a project that's going to be in Queensland. Okay. All right. So I think that's all I had to say for tonight. I would like to thank you guys very much and remind you that if you want to register to my free online workshop, where you're going to learn, I'm going to teach you how you can start your application process in just a week. During a week I will teach you, and then obviously you'll take your time to prepare everything. But if you don't know anything, or if you know a little bit, you can watch my videos of the workshop and you will learn how you can start your application to validate your engineering qualification here in Australia. And next week on Sunday, I haven't decided yet what I'm going to talk in the next live session, but probably can be another question and answer sessions, because last week and the week before was question and answers, and I have a lot of questions that people sent to me. And next week I can probably do another session on question and answers. I'm going to do a stories with a question box where you can send me your questions, and I will reply those questions during the live session. All right. So I hope to see you next Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Brisbane time.